So, as Barbara said this morning, the theme for this morning is Let Love Bloom. But don't get all excited. It's not a relationship. This is not a relationship meeting this morning. We're not talking about the really sweet love. Oh my gosh, that newfound love. Oh my gosh, can you feel it? Oh, when you first fall in love. And then can you remember when that goes away? Yeah. Love is confusing. Next. Love is confusing. Now, the ancient Greeks had 7 names or more for love that went from the physical love, which I was just talking about, the eros, romantic love, sexual love, philia, the friendly, brotherly love, all the way to the spiritual love, the agape love, which is the love we're talking about this morning. The Hindus had different names for love, the qualities of love, but we call love what? Love. It's confusing. But this morning, I wore red because the love that I'm talking about this morning is not that sweet little love. It's the tough love that's courageous, that's willing to speak the truth, to stand in power, that doesn't need to be liked. There was no place in any of these definitions of love from any of the cultures and traditions I looked at that talked about doormat love. Nobody talks about that. I changed a little bit what I wanted to talk about today after I heard of the shooting that happened in Poway at the synagogue yesterday. And I heard the message of real love, the love that I'm talking about. It wasn't from what happened, but it was how people there reacted and used the pain. What we don't understand sometimes, we have a lot of expectations on this human condition. But if we truly believe the wholeness of love, that God is love and God are all there is, it is the base of everything, we have to realize that every experience brings an opportunity to love more, to understand more, that everything is an experience that's teaching us to grow in a greater expression of who we really are. And I heard one of the commentators talking about the woman that was killed. There was a woman someone killed and 3 people injured. The woman that was killed was standing in front of the rabbi, protecting him. That is real love. Then the Goldstein, I practice his first name, but I can't get it right, so Rabbi Goldstein, he had 2 of his fingers shot off, and he continued to give his Passover message, because he said, we are strong. That is the love I'm talking about, that can go beyond the fear, the hate, the anger, and do good for something greater than ourselves. There were people covering children, taking care of people. And there was a person outside, one of the synagogue members, Minu Anvari, who stood outside waiting for her husband. And she shared a message from the congregation to the people that were there. One message from all of us in our congregation is that we are standing together. We are getting stronger. Never again. You cannot break us. We are strong. Then a little later it went on, and I'm not sure if the same person said this, but it said, look at the faces of your neighbors, especially those different than yours. Ask them for their stories. Find room for the belief that our dreams are interwoven. This love we talk about is the love that Jesus spoke of when he said, love God good, love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and love one another. Those are the only 2 commandments, the only 2 things that everything else hangs on, stems from. Everything comes from that kind of love. And when we love that way, things change. Now, people on the wall we have over here knew that kind of love. They knew they could sacrifice their own personal interests to do something for the good of all. Now, when Martin Luther King, who was a Baptist minister, when he was challenged, well, you say love everybody, how do you do that? And he said, well, it doesn't mean I have to like everyone. What the love we're looking for is when we can see with these broader eyes. We first have to know the love within ourselves, first and foremost, and I'll talk about that. But when we know that love and we can feel it in the other, we can love that person for being a unique expression of God and forget everything else. I think most of us have work to do, right? That's why we're here. We're continuing to evolve and grow. Now, this is a little story, and it's a little bit silly. It seems really minor compared to the shooting that happened, but I believe everything in life is a message. Now, different levels of messaging, but I believe everything is a message. And a few weeks ago, I had a man that was highly recommended come, and he was cleaning my aquarium. He'd been doing it for three times because I just couldn't take care of everybody. And so I figured, let a professional do it. Well, on the fourth time he came over, I woke up the next morning and I had the majority of my fish at the top of the aquarium. And it hurt me, but it also hurt me for him. Because I thought, how does he feel? How does he feel coming here to such a nice person having this happen? So I just texted him and I said, I just have a lot of fish floating at the top of my aquarium. What should I do? And, I know this is difficult. And he texted right back, I'll be right there. So he cleaned it up. Oh, he felt so bad. He just felt so bad. Well, he brought me new fish yesterday. Well, a lot. I've never had that many fish. Oh my God, there's so many of them. I just kept a small grouping that I could handle. But what I noticed is they're integrating. They swim in their communities, but they're having, I've seen more fun in that aquarium than I've seen in my 3 years of having that thing, because there are so many of them and they're coming together and they're integrating and working with each other. And it made me think of what real love is. It's about community and group. Nature leads with love. That's what nature does. Nature works together. You can't be a human being without the collaboration of the parts of you working together to make you the same in nature. It works together, and genes and cells collaborate. They have to collaborate for the greater good, the bigger purpose. And that's what happens in nature. And we have a lot to learn from nature. Now, I can't completely learn from my fish tank because some of those fish eat their children. So, we have to take the lessons that are meaningful to us. But I think when I talk about let love bloom, if we think about a flower, and boy, you walk outside right now, springtime is the time of transformation, the time of growth. I know some of us are feeling that transformation and we're exhausted and we're tired and we wonder if we can keep transforming and growing, but I already know the answer. It starts with a Y and it ends with an S, and the answer is yes, because that's what we're designed to do. But if you think about a seed has to be planted in good soil. And the seed needs to know what to do with that soil. And it was interesting at our practitioner meeting yesterday, Dr. Roger was talking about the parable of the sower, which is what I'd been just reading about, the seed planted on different types of soil. We need good soil to grow. The parable, Jesus' story that has all these levels, is about a sower that was sowing seed indiscriminately, without thinking. How many of us use the seed of our thoughts, our actions indiscriminately, without thinking really what we're doing that's affecting the larger picture? And he was throwing seeds, some on the pathway, some in hard soil, some on thorny soil, and none of those seeds could grow. They all died because they weren't put in the right conditions. But the seeds he threw on the fertile soil grew 100-fold. The same thing happens with us. When we use the seed of that divine potential within us, that seed right of everything we could ever want that's infinite, eternal, unconditional, we can grow amazing things in our life and the life of others. But if we're not honoring, if we're not using the soil of our fertile mind and our fertile hearts to grow the possibilities that are calling us a divine urge, we're not utilizing our life to the full extent of what it's supposed to be. Some of us, the first thing we have to do, I believe, is to have a firm conviction that life is good. Just say that. Life is good. When? Now. Life is good when? Now. Okay, life is what? Good. Oh my gosh, you're listening this morning. It must be the fourth Sunday. I love that. So life is good right now. And you and I, whether we know it, no matter if we're feeling crummy or creepy or wonderful, we have a beautiful, this potent energy inside us that wants to grow. It's that divine urge to grow. Now, Ernest Holmes calls it our spiritual bank account. Doesn't this sound cool? It's infinite and eternal, and it's in us, and it has inherent wealth continually. It has creativity, possibility, imagination, and guidance, and it's there. But we don't have to use it. We can ignore it. We can pretend it's not there. It takes work to go deep enough to tap in. When we go deep, we have to go through all that other stuff, all the other issues we have and pains and hurts we have in order to get to the possibility that's going to bring greater wisdom and understanding. But it's there for us to use, and we must open to it to use it. Ernest Holmes said, God's love is always there whether we recognize it or not. We cannot be afraid to love. And today for our prayer wall, which we're not ready to yet, but I want you to be preparing the soil of your mind and heart, is where are you not ready to love? You and I, depending on how we use that power for good, how willing we are, courageous we are to go deep and tap into that wellspring of goodness, we can either be broken, like those seeds on the hard soil or the pathway or the thorny ground. We can either be broken, or you and I can be broken, open to something greater. That's what life is all about. My friend Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light comes through. In Japanese art, wabi-sabi means the beauty of art that is imperfect. A pot that is cracked shows that it has history and a meaning to it. And for us, we have to treat ourselves in the same way, that the wounds we have all had in life are a place to step into our better self, our best self, a new, revised version of ourself. Love transforms everything, just as that amazing, beautiful reading that Barbara read this morning. That's the power of what I'm talking about. But it takes courage. That kind of love doesn't have to be liked. It doesn't have to expect applause. It's the kind that's willing to do what's right and good and true. And it's in all of us. So you and I are to remember that place is where the light comes through. Here's what Ernest Holmes says. He says, we must learn to go deep into the abundant resources of this supreme power. Remember that hand here? That place is touching the all-knowing wisdom that we talked about. It's there for us. We must have to go deep and when we tap into love that's been deposited, any situation can be healed. And that's what we as practitioners and ministers study, the healing power of love, that anything can be healed when we open ourselves to a greater truth and a greater knowing. Faith, meditation, prayer, contemplation, beauty, nature, whatever it is that opens you to something more, that's the healing power. And when you and I tap into that healing power, wow, and let it flow in our lives, it does something more than just for ourselves. Because like those cells I talked about, there's a gene actually in the flower, one gene that tells every flower the perfect time to bloom. And it's called a petala one, I believe, something like that. But it tells the flower, oh, now it is. Now it's the time to grow and open. We know in ourselves when it's time for us to grow and open to something more, when we've been stuck in the limiting mediocrity and tendency of our habitual thinking and our thoughts. How many of you are ready to open to something more? Right here and right now. Well, good. If you're willing and ready, well, you can do it, because that's what it takes. The willingness and readiness to open and bloom into something more. Now, in religious science, science of mind, we use love as the synonym for God. That's what God is. God is also light. Love and light, it's all synonymous. That light, to me, means when we go out and share our good in the world. I mean, that's really, I have learned so much from this congregation about the good that's going on in the world. If we sit around and talk to each other and listen to each other's stories and hear what people care about and what they're doing, it can change our lives. That's the light we share. You don't have to be... Mother Teresa said, it's not how much good you do in the world, it's how much love you put in what you're doing. How much love you put in what you're doing. Think of that one little tiny woman and what she did. She and her missionaries of charity, oh my gosh, it ended up to be this huge, well, let me just tell you, she never counted how many people that she aided or helped by her ministry. But at the time of her death, there were 4,000 sisters in her missionaries of charity, 300 brothers who worked out into the world, 600 missions in 123 countries. That all stemmed from this one woman's love. She said, I am here to be the expression of God's love. And she would tell her nuns, we have been called to heal the poorest of the poor. That's our work. That's why we're here. We're not all called for the same mission. That was her mission. They were hospices and homes for people with AIDS, leprosy, tuberculosis. There were soup kitchens, family and children's counseling programs, personal helpers, orphanages, and schools. And she would simply tell her people, today God loves the world through you and through me. Every day. And that's what we need to start saying. Today, God loves the world through you and through me. That can mean 1, 2, 3 people. It can mean a group. It can mean a community. It can be something larger than that. But that's the work we've been called to do. One night, Mother Teresa, she'd been out helping in the slums and doing her work. And she fell ill with a fever. And she had a dream that St. Peter came to see her. St. Peter looked down and said, Mother Teresa, there's no place for you here. We don't have slums in heaven. And she said, okay, fine. I'll keep on working, and I'll bring the people from the slums to heaven. That's what... Don't give up on anyone. Don't believe anybody up there that says there's no place for us. There's a place for every one of us. We're all doing our work right now when we bring that beautiful kindness and thought to this moment. So I'm going to, as I'm just preparing and giving you a little call to action, to have our ministers and our practitioners come and form a beautiful wall of love. And I'm going to give you a call to action. Because the truth I know is that love works, and we have to have a bigger idea of it in our lives. So there's 2 things you can say. What would love do, or how does love God want to use me today? And I'm going to give you the call to give it a try it out, experiment with it. See how it changes your life. See what happens when you allow yourself to be that goodness in action, to see a bigger picture, to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Now, if there's something right now that keeps you, blocks you from being open. If it's pain, hurt, if it's a thought, if it's a situation, our ministers, practitioners are here to know the truth for you. And we have a 5-step prayer. Our first step of our prayer is God is all there is. Say it. Second, I am one with God. And then when we speak our truth, which our practitioners and ministers will do for you today, is when you know, I know, and you know the goodness, you know the healing, you know whatever it is, you know the truth that you're looking for, you simply know it, and you plant that seed thought in this infinite mind of good that only knows to say yes. And then we give thanks for it, and then we release it, and we'll do that together at the end. But I'm going to invite you now, whatever it is, come up, whatever it is on your heart, heavy on your heart, or something good you want to continue, come up to our prayer wall now. Mind of good into this all-knowing presence of love. As we feel the transformation happening in this moment, as we're letting the vibrations of God's goodness just carry us to a higher understanding, a higher knowing, as we tap into that infinite resource and let the love of God shine and grow. As love lifts us up and our beautiful ministers and practitioners are finishing their prayers, will you just put your hands on your heart in this exalted place as love has lifted you up, and simply speak aloud, I love my life. I love my heart. I love my soul. I love all humanity. I see love. I see peace. I see harmony. I choose love, peace, and harmony. I see it done. I give great thanks for all of this and so much more. I release it to the infinite law of mind. And it is done. Thank you for being part of this transformation today. Know how much I really do love each and one of you, and how much better you make my life. Thank you, and so it is. Thank you.